Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Mirror of Intimacy webinar. I'm Dr. Alexandra Katehakis, and today is Monday, July 10th. And the topic we're going to be talking about today is strength. And as usual, before we get started, I just want to remind you of a few things. For example, if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A box. So not the chat box, but into the Q&A box, and then I'll answer them as we go along. And I would also like to request that you try to keep your questions on the topic of strength. Sometimes people get exuberant and start asking about other things. So let's keep that in mind today. And then also when you remember to, and if it's right for you, to kindly leave us a review on Amazon for the book Mirror of Intimacy. Let us know what you love about the book. Let us know how you're using the book. Any stories that you have about the book, how it's helped you or someone else is always welcome. So thank you for that in advance. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that just by clicking the button below. So that way you can keep up with what we're doing. You can also follow me on Instagram at Alex Katehakis or at Center for Healthy Sex. Today's quote is from Hermann Hesse, and he writes, "Love must be strong enough to find certainty within itself. It then ceases to be moved and becomes the mover." So I love when language plays on itself like this. So he's saying love must be strong enough to find certainty within itself. So what does that mean exactly? How do we find certainty within something? And the way that I read this is that the love itself is certain. There's no second guessing, there's no mistrust or lack of respect or all the components that go into defining love. And, of course, poets and philosophers like Hermann Hesse and people from the beginning of time have been trying to define the word love. But here, he's very succinctly and very compactly saying that when the love is strong enough, it is certain. It is certain in and of itself. And then it ceases to become moved, and it becomes the mover. So the love cannot be moved. It cannot be rattled or shaken. It is actually the energy or the thing that moves us out into the world or moves us together if someone else is involved. So when we are moved by love and love becomes the mover, then we're in a beautiful cycle of loving, I believe. So there's something sexy about people who possess strength, and we all know what that looks like. And I think it looks different for each one of us. Sometimes we can think about it as physical strength or emotional strength, but these are people that make a space for us to be strong ourselves. And so when we're in the presence of somebody who's strong, we in turn can be strong, and they can also bear our strength. And I think this is one of the many challenges that we face in the world today. Is I've actually had conversations with men who have said to me, "Wow, your husband must be really secure." And that's sort of an interesting backhanded compliment, I think. Because I am a strong individual, I have strong opinions, but it doesn't also mean that I'm not vulnerable, that I don't get scared or concerned or worried or any of the things that other human beings do. But to have a partner who can bear my strength, who's not threatened by my strength, who can be stronger than I in many contexts, allows me to be stronger also. So this notion of strength actually begets strength when we're in a healthy relationship. And if we're not, our strength can be threatening to somebody. And so then we start to shrink and become weak in the face of their threatened feelings because of their own inadequacy. So you can see this becomes quite complex when it comes to what strength is and what it isn't. And often we just meter out enough strength to handle the immediate situation. Like we don't want to be too intimidating or too big because we sense that but never achieve the true range of our power. So we stay small. And I think this is true for many females also. We tend to stay small, subjugate ourselves, not have a voice, not handle situations, because we worry that other people, and it can be certainly other women also, in our presence, feel threatened by that. And so we shrink in order to accommodate those around us. And certainly children learn that in households where it feels dangerous to be too big, too exuberant, too loud. And brute strength on a battlefield or in sports can certainly thrill some people who like to spectate that kind of brute strength. But exercising the muscles of relational skills provides a much subtler kind of joy when it comes to speaking our true voice and the gentle strength of our souls, and experiencing and also revealing all of who we are. So keep that in mind, that strength is not just this physical action. It is certainly something that comes from within. It's an energy from within. It's a presence, if you will, the ability to make eye contact, to tolerate somebody else's pain, their difficulties, their joys, and also to celebrate with them and not feel threatened or diminished because they are getting something that you want, or you feel like they are winning at something that you're not. To be able to calibrate ourselves in our strength, to remember that I'm okay as I am. I'm doing just fine as I am. It also takes a lot of fortitude to communicate honestly, and to be sober in your emotional construction, and to be able to communicate in these honest, emotionally sober ways about sexual needs, and to do it from the depth of your soul without shame, without self-consciousness, without equivocating about it or making excuses, which is sort of the same thing. So having the fortitude to communicate honestly and deeply about your sexual needs is one of the callings that we have as we turn into and grow into adulthood. And many cultures malign and ridicule individual truth. And I think we still see that all day, every day in our own culture, that when we attempt to reveal ourselves to other people, it can make them very uncomfortable and leave us feeling ashamed for taking a risk, for wanting to talk about the difficult, for speaking about the unspeakable. For example, when it comes to grief and loss and death, these are things that people do not want to talk about, but in the not talking about it, we don't cultivate our own inner strength. We need to be able to talk about our greatest fears, our terrors, in order to walk forward into whatever might be calling us to walk forward. So notice where you feel like you've been shut down when it comes to speaking your truth, being strong about what your beliefs are around love, death, sex, life, living, all of it. And what stops you from authentically speaking out about what's true for you? When we strive to become our best selves, we face each day in a way that requires our strength. We cannot walk into the world on any given day saying, oh, I feel weak, I don't feel so good. We can, and we do, certainly when we're sick. But if we're really setting out today, today is the day where I'm striving for my personal best, not in competition with my neighbor, not because I think I'm supposed to be doing something somebody told me I should do, but because I'm deeply passionate about what I'm passionate about. And I really want to go forward with my best self. And I'm going to go forward with all of my strength, all of my voice, all of my creativity and wackiness, or whatever else is unique. And this requires a daily surrender from each and every day. So we go to sleep every night, we fall into a deep sleep, hopefully into oblivion. We're not thinking about much of anything other than rest, and we fall into rest. And that is a way of rebooting and restarting and starting the day fresh and awake and vital, willing to make that pact again. So again, today, I am going to strive to be my best self. And I'm going to use all of my strength to do so. And it doesn't mean that it has to be the entire day of best self. It may be, I'm going to focus today on being nicer or kinder or more forgiving or less judgmental or whatever my particular issue is. And I'm going to use all of my strength to notice how easy it is to slip into old patterns. And this would especially be true if they were patterns of addiction. So someone writes, as an Afro-Caribbean woman, the strong Black woman trope is exhausting, but I am aiming towards the holistic, healthy Black woman who can be vulnerable and self-compassionate. That's beautiful, Michelle. Thank you for that. I would agree that that is, it's like it is a trope, and there are many of them in our culture, but that one in particular lands the weight of the world, I would imagine, on a woman of color's shoulders. And I imagine also that that harkens way back into days of slavery, where atrocities were happening in front of women every single minute of the day, and they had to, quote, be strong, which really meant they had to suck it up. And then what it really meant was that they had to dissociate in order to put one foot in front of the other and make it through another day. And so strength is not dissociation. It is not checking out. And what Michelle is pointing to is a beautiful integration where vulnerability is a part of being a strong human being, being able to cry or get angry or feel lost or hurt in some ways is what builds our strength, not just being a wall, not just hiding all of our emotions, because that leads to bitterness and angry and resentment. So thank you for bringing that point up. And I would imagine many people and many women listening to this can relate based on their own culture, what their cultures have dictated to them from the beginning of time. Like some cultures dictate education, that education reigns supreme over everything else. And so those people develop these extremely strong left brains, which becomes an intellectual defense. So now I can intellectually defend myself against anything and I won't get hurt, but I'm not feeling anything either, which is different than someone who comes from a post-traumatic slave culture where dissociation gets handed down intergenerationally. So all of us are taught in ways, even the adage, you know, big girls don't cry or big boys don't cry. Those small messages become pervasive and they teach us to shut everything down. And our work, I think, as realized beings, that people that are on a path of wellness, of personal growth and development, is to deconstruct those messages and to reframe and realign and redefine what strength actually means. And that is the work we're all here to do. Because if you weren't on a path of awakening, you wouldn't be interested in these topics to begin with. And if anybody has anything to add to that part of the conversation, please feel free to chime in. So when we think about relationships, we have to face this imperfect yet beautiful, meaningful life with another person. And that challenges us constantly to let go of selfish needs and expectations. And this is challenging. I heard this weekend that 51% of people in the United States are not getting married now. And we have a very high divorce rate because people give up because they're so busy blaming and shaming their partners, instead of really challenging ourselves to look at our selfish needs, our selfish expectations. I mean, how many people really look at their expectations before they go into a relationship? Most of us have this vague idea or this happily ever after story that it's all going to work out, or because I'm so in love with this person, because I'm in this high limerence phase, And we have enough things in common that it's just all going to go beautifully. And really, relationships are there to challenge us, to have us look at our imperfections, to look at our limitations, and to force us to let go of that which is selfish, and to change our expectations instead to be in gratitude for the person that's in front of us, that is really our greatest teacher. So someone writes, can you clarify how dissociation isn't strength? I'm trying to get through my husband's sexual betrayal. Well, dissociation is a survival mechanism. So you could argue that it's a strength. I wouldn't call it that. I think it's a survival mechanism that's built into the human organism. And so when we're faced with a trauma, with duress, with shock, our systems beautifully shut down because we can only tolerate so much. We can't take it all in. And that is how the nervous system is designed to protect us. But staying in that state only will make us sick over time. What real strength is to be able to slowly work our way out of those dissociative states and to feel what we couldn't feel at the moment of the shock or the trauma or the event. And when we can start to feel those feelings, we become more neurally integrated, and then we become more resilient. And that which is resilient bends, that which is not becomes rigid and brittle and angry and sick over time. So this is a very long and difficult recovery for people, especially people that have suffered intimate betrayal trauma. It takes time, but it is not a place to stay. And sometimes it's scarier to come out of it than it is to stay in it, because what's in it is known. But coming out of it means that I have to make some really difficult decisions. And I also heard recently that I think approximately 70% of women file for divorce, not men, but women. Because when women are in pain, when women are unhappy in relationships, they have to go. And men have a much easier time staying when they're not happy because they don't want to lose their family. They don't want to lose their kids. They also don't think it's that bad somehow because they don't feel it in the way we do. They are not as, perhaps in general, they're more resilient than females are. And I understand this is very gendered, what I'm saying, and very general also, but I am speaking in generality. That when women are unhappy, we're really unhappy. It's serious. It's not a joke. It's just not something I can just get over or put away. It needs to be worked through. And when it's not, that's when women leave. So when we recognize the more we grasp, the less we gain, the better off we'll be. And being able to let go of that which isn't working any longer can feel weak and terrifying and scary, but it is the stronger thing to do when it's not working anymore, because grasping, even in the Buddhist tradition, is what creates suffering. Holding on to that which no longer fits, which no longer is right, which I am tolerating, is not good for me. It may be good for you because it keeps me here, but it is not good for me. And I will say that you can find my new workbook, What Turns You On, A Guide to Living Your Best Sex Life, is available on Amazon now. You have to type in the entire title of the book in order to find it because it hasn't quite ranked yet. But it's a super fun workbook for just that, getting clarity about what kind of sex life you like, what you want, what you don't want. It's hopefully a really fun read for those of you that are interested in such a thing. So back when it comes to strength, our strength lies not in conquering the world, but in conquering ourselves. And I can't stress that enough. So many people leave relationships and they do it out of resentment and contempt, and say that the person that I previously loved and thought was amazing is now a jerk, a schmuck. And it's their fault that the relationship didn't work out. And yet, John Kabat-Zinn said a long time ago, no matter where you are, wherever you go, there you are. And you will drag those same issues into your next relationship, and your next relationship and your next relationship, until you start to recognize that you are the common denominator. So this is not about conquering other people or getting somebody to love you or getting somebody to be in relationship with you. It is about you getting into relationship with yourself and you challenging yourself, and you finding out where your problems are based on what happened in your family of origin, and really looking at your own attachment issues. And when you do that and you start to straighten those out, then people will bother you a lot less, and you'll be able to stay in relationship a lot more, and you will be able to experience intimacy in ways you never have before. So as you go forward today and this week and the rest of July, I really want to challenge you with this, if nothing else, and that is to pay attention to whether you're looking at the other and trying to get the other to change or want the other to be healthy versus what you can do in relation to that person. How reactive am I? How judgmental am I? How much am I deceiving myself? How much am I making excuses for that person? What is true for me? What do I want? What do I need? These are the questions to be asking, not trying to manage somebody else's getting better or mentally healthier or anything like that. So what recommendations would you offer to create healthy boundaries to sustain one's strength? Well, I think it's useful to have a lot of reminders about boundaries. And I've talked about this before, but one of my favorite books is Melody Beattie's book, The Language of Letting Go, which is a daily reader for codependents. And in that reader, every single day, there's a meditation on boundaries. There's another great book called there's several books on boundaries. One of them is Where You End and I Begin by Anne Catherine. So these little books, and they are little, one is a daily reader, one's like 120 pages, are ways for you to make a list of what are the boundaries I need to hold. When I say no, do I mean no? When I don't know what to say, do I backpedal what's true for me, or do I say yes when I don't want to be saying yes? And if that's the case, you have to start to learn to say things like, let me think about this. Let me get back to you. Let me talk to someone else and ask them what they think about this. I mean, someone asked me today if I would be interested in doing something that's going to require some of my time. And while it's interesting and exciting, and I probably would enjoy doing it, I don't want to say yes on the spot. I really want to think about it. I want to feel in my body what this obligation would feel like. And is it a resounding yes for me? Does it feel like a maybe, or does it just feel like a no? And whatever is true is the answer that I have to deliver. So keep checking in with yourself, keep asking yourself what's true for you, and make sure that you are also running it by trusted others, a community of concern, a sponsor, a best friend, a fair witness, somebody who you trust is going to give you good feedback. I don't know the answer to this question. When does strength become toxic femininity? I think if somebody is wielding strength in a way where their intention is to hurt or to conquer or to take advantage of or to be manipulative, then it's toxic, whether male or female. The kind of what I'm pointing to is an inner strength that has us taking care of ourselves first and foremost, which then allows us to have boundaries, which then allows us to be in relationship with other people in healthy and productive ways. And we live in a society where sexual messages are warped and the meaning of love gets lost. So we have to become peaceful warriors, not toxic warriors, championing relational and sexual health. And we do that by exemplifying that ourselves, by being decent human beings. And if we make a mistake or we say something that's hurtful, we apologize for it. And we give people context for why we might have said something, bad or hurtful or mean, and just own it. That's the best that we can do, because we're all human. We all can't be taking care of everybody at all time. And so using this as an opportunity. As Carl Jung said, if you want to heal the world, you start by healing yourself. Use this invitation to become strong internally, to set boundaries, to say no, so that you can champion relational and sexual health. And back to that question of toxicity, when people don't set boundaries, when they're passive aggressive, when they say they'll do something, but they really don't want to, and then they don't do it, or they take it back, or they are resentful and angry when they go do the thing they didn't really want to do, but they said yes, that is toxic. When you say no on the front end, or you say yes and you show up with a good attitude, that is modeling relational and sexual health, or relational health. Sexual health has to do more with our, partners that we're having sex with. But likewise, we have to be bold enough to say, this is what I like sexually, and this is what I don't like sexually. This is what I'm willing to try. I'm interested and curious in hearing about what you do and don't like sexually, and I'm going to listen without judgment. I'm going to listen with curiosity, because curiosity opens space. Judgment closes space. And it takes a lot of force to be able to sit in this place that I'm talking about, because it requires knowledge about ourselves, apart from whatever the culture is telling us, or the groupthink, or the tropes, or the memes, or anything else, that we have to be willing to stand apart in this particular way. And that is the challenge for all of us today, especially as we keep hearing these warnings and the drums beating of AI coming to take over humanity, take over our jobs, take over our talents, take all of that over. And you can collapse into fear over that and quit, or you can use the force inside of you to learn about yourself, to stand strong, and to say no to the things that you feel are going to be impinging on you or our culture or our humanity in constructive ways. Someone writes, I've learned to practice strength in action, but struggle with ruminating over events, people, and fantasies. I constantly catch myself and try to bring myself into my body, but any tips of implementing strength in my thoughts so I don't ruminate non-realities? Well, I believe that is a mindfulness practice, and one that requires a vigilance on our part. So the fact that you're even doing this is a reflection of your strength, of your willingness to make changes. These changes that I say take great force to do so, because it's not easy to change patterns. And the brain is so highly automated that anything we do over and over again, it believes is real. So whether it's about a muscle that you're not using or a muscle that you're shortening over and over again, at some point the brain believes that muscle is supposed to be short. So when you try to stretch it like a hamstring, it feels excruciatingly painful. And it will take a long time for that muscle to stretch out again, because the brain's been told for years that it's short. And so in the same way, where you are telling your mind to stop running this bad radio station in our heads, to focus on the present, to get here and now, it takes a while for it to be retrained. So in addition to focusing on your body, it's useful to bring yourself deeply into the present moment, to notice how the chair feels on the back of your seat right now. How does your back feel? What is the temperature of the room you're in? Can you feel your hands on the steering wheel if you're driving, or the sun on your face, or the warmth on the top of your head? Whatever elements are around you sensationally, that's what you want to feel and check into, and remind yourself there's this whole beautiful day going on, and I'm missing a day of my life, a minute of my life, because I'm in some fantasy ruminating about something that will probably never happen. So Dan Millman, who wrote The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, which is a beautiful book if you haven't read, also wrote another book, and I can't think of the title, but if you go to Amazon and to his page, you'll find it. And he talks specifically about what he calls mind gossip and how to intervene on it. And that might be helpful to you. So I'm glad to hear that these resources have been life-giving to you, and that you're intervening on your codependency, which again is just and a traumatic reaction to growing up in an unsafe household. And when we remind ourselves every day that we're safe now, that it's okay, that we are taking care of ourselves, we don't have to keep using those strategies. But because they are so adaptive and so patterned, we have to work against them all the time, every day. All of us do, me included. So none of us gets out of this thing alive. And it's challenging for all of us, and we get different challenges depending on who we are and what our particular invitation is in this lifetime. So keep in mind that it takes strength to balance ourselves. And balance is not a one and done thing. I often think about a tightrope walker, how balance is every step. And you have to have strong thighs and strong abdominals and strong feet and a strong sense of your balance when you're on a tightrope, I would imagine. I've never been on one. In order to rebalance every step and not to reinforce these old patterns or our ego. But we want to operate in the spirit of our vision and not be casual in our choices. So right now, I might ask you to consider just taking out a piece of paper and asking yourself for the rest of this month. So forget 30 days, just let's think about the rest of this month. I think it's 3 more weeks as I look at my calendar. What is my vision for cultivating strength for the rest of July? And so for me, I have been having some muscle imbalances and things I need to strengthen. And I'm committed to stretching every day and reworking these bad patterns that are creating some pain for me. And so my commitment is to stretch 3 times a day, no matter what, that I am committed to waking my body up, to getting my brain to loosen things up. And I will do that absolutely 3 times a day, every day between now and the end of July. And that means I have to find time to do it in my office before I go to sleep when I'm super tired and I don't want to do it. But not to reinforce the negative beliefs that this isn't working and this is going to take forever and my body is permanently tweaked. But instead, I want to operate in the spirit of my vision, of holding a vision for my muscles to be free again, to be loose. And so I cannot be casual in my choices around rectifying this problem. I have to be very deliberate, very intentional, very formal, and that I do it, and I'm disciplined to do it every day. And I have, people that I'm accountable to that are helping me through this particular issue. And mind you, this is not by any means life-threatening. It's just annoying. So think about what's true for you. Is this a bodily-based problem, or is this about being strong enough to say no? And what do I have to do to be vigilant about saying no? What is your vision for that? First of all, what is your vision for where you want to get stronger this month? And what are the things you need to do to carry out that vision? So mine is to strengthen and heal my muscle, and I'm going to do it 3 times a day, no matter what. And so if you have difficulty saying no, for example, you might want to just get a simple index card and write no on it and put it in the book you're reading, put it in your purse, put it in your gym bag, put it in your car, tape it to your computer, like make a concerted effort to make sure that no is in your vocabulary. And then find somebody who will support you in what this vision is for the rest of this month. Strength means sticking to our true selves. And that is one of the most clear, I think, definitions of it. Sticking to our true self. And it can only be measured by how much we appreciate every distinctive true quality of ourselves and our beloveds. So can I stick to my true self? And I can measure that by how much I appreciate myself. I was thinking about this recently. I remember as a young woman, hearing all the time about self-love, and I thought, what is that? And so I say affirmations, and I try to figure all these things out. I go to therapy and I work out. But I really believe, as I've gotten older, that this becomes an embodied knowing. And we get more sensitive as we age, in that we become more fragile. Like the world feels a little bit more intense as we become physically less able in the world also. So we're more fragile. Things feel a little bit less safe in some ways. And with that comes more self-care, not going out at night, not parking on dark streets, not thinking that I'm invincible, and many of the things I did in my youth, which I'm glad I did. So I'm not, feeling like a victim or anything like that. I think we have seasons in our lives and times when we do things. And so what is the season in your life right now? What do you need to do to up level your game when it comes to self-care? What do you need to take care of that you're not taking care of? And maybe it's just simple things. It doesn't have to be big things. So what is a habit that you need to install to better take care of yourself on a daily basis? Because when you do, then you appreciate yourself, all the things about yourself. You stop hating your hands, your hair, your knees, your face, your feet, your derriere, all of it. That stops, it falls away. And then we can appreciate every distinctive quality of the person that we love and we're in love with, whether it's children or a lover or a parent. It all starts from the inside. This is an inside job. So when this differentiation happens, it leads to a real individuation. We reach our purest desire, which is to love everything that we experience fearlessly and with strength. We're no longer afraid to love because we're loving from a place of strength, not from a place of weakness, which is, I love you because I need you to love me back, because I'm desperate, because I need validation from other people. And if I don't get that, I don't feel worthy or like I matter in the world, right? That's a whole different configuration. This turns it on its head. We can love fearlessly and everybody. It's not personal, this kind of love. It's a deep caring for humanity. And when we can love fearlessly, we stop dehumanizing people and animals and trees and the planet. You have to dehumanize a person of color in order to shoot them or to treat them like animals. That's the only way it can happen. You have to dehumanize somebody if you are Russian or Ukrainian and you're in a war in order to kill that human being. It must be done. Otherwise, you can't kill like that. In the same way people beat animals or children that are helpless. That dehumanization has nothing to do with strength or with loving at all. And so when you can love everybody, no matter who they are, the color of their skin, what their political beliefs are, what they're doing or not doing, but love their humanity fearlessly, that means you have boundaries and that means you have strength. And that is the quality that we need, I think, to heal the world that we're living in and the planet, as it were. So I realized I didn't talk much about sex or love or relationships because I'm talking about the primary relationship here, which is with you. And so the first question in our daily sex acts today is, are you strong in yourself? And to list your unwavering strengths and realize how they originated, because it was very easy for me, and I would say necessary for me when I was first in therapy many, many years ago, to look at all of the problems in my family of origin, all the way I was hurt, all the way I wasn't seen or heard and understood. And then over time, I came to realize that those things were true. But I couldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because the very things that I had as a strength internally originated from my family of origin. And sometimes they felt like a weapon because of the way that they were used, but they ended up being a gift. So one example I'll give you is that my mother was extremely obsessive about things being in order. And she didn't have OCD, but she had obsessive compulsive personality traits for sure. So her motto was, there's a place for everything and everything in its place. And as such, I became an extremely organized person, but not to the extent that she was. I really had to work a lot around my anxiety about everything being, in the right place at the right time. I'm a little bit sloppier than she was, thankfully. And so I had to work on that sloppiness, by the way. But I'm deeply grateful every day that I can balance a checkbook because of her, that my clothes are in order, that I don't throw things all over the floor and can't not find clothes because they're piled under other clothes. So while some of what was going on, which was maybe hard for me because of my temperament as a child, ended up being a gift that was given to me. So that recognition that it's both and takes us out of being a victim. Some people confuse strength with rigidity or false pride or what somebody was calling toxic. And self-perceptions of our personal power can be the self-deceptive result of early defenses that got set up. So let me say that again. Strength is not rigidity. It's not false pride. It's not, as Pia Melody says, hiding behind a wall, which means nobody's in and nobody out. Our ideas about personal power can come from feeling grandiose or egotistical, and that's self-deceptive. And that's really about defenses. Those are defenses that got set up early on, because true strength connects our true self to life in the way that I'm talking about. It's a vitality state. So today or this month, while you're working on your vision for strength, and you're looking at your particular strengths, ask a bunch of people that you know to share what they consider your strengths. So ask your closest peeps what they think about that. If they were to describe your strengths, what would they say? And let their responses guide how you start to exercise your personal power this week. So if someone says, boy, you really are great at saying no, and you don't worry about what other people are going to think or if it hurts their feelings, then you have to ask yourself, I wonder if I'm too harsh. Do I need to consider that I'm too harsh sometimes? Because I'm going to hear that that's a great strength for me, that I can say no and mean it and hold my boundary. But I also want to consider if maybe sometimes that comes across as uncaring or cold or mean. If, on the other hand, they say, one of the great boundaries you have is that you say no, and you feel bad about saying no because you're just learning to say no, then say no more. That was a play on words. Say the word no more as you go through your day and see what that feels like. Maybe you say yes sometimes when yes feels really good and it feels right. So you're not saying no to everything. But start to play with these energies and see how they feel in your body when you state them. And then ask yourself, what's the next right step for you to take for self-actualization? What is the next right step for you? Be strong and let your past speak to you. Let your past be an integrated part of this as you risk taking this step forward. So it might be scary for you to take a risk, to close that chasm, to take a leap. But what does your past tell you about whether you can do this or not? Because most of us are incredibly strong and resilient. We've lived life. We've been hurt by people. We've been loved by people. And all of that is the tapestry of who we are. The good, the bad, and the ugly all make up who we are. So be strong and ask yourself this question about, what do I need to do to further actualize myself as I go forward in this month of July, when we're really in the heat of the summer now. This is the peak of the summer. So this is a time to be bold, to wear bold colors, to have fun, to take risks, not to be careless, but to really stretch your edges a little bit. Don't stay small, don't stay in a box. Give yourself a lot of space to have fun and to play in this beautiful summer month of July. So thank you for your attention today and for some of your wonderful questions and comments. And I will look forward to seeing you in August.